this video, you're going to get an in-depth look at a broadcast audio solution that features Pro Tools and Avid control surfaces. Jesse O'Brien is the audio ministry lead for all of the Red Rocks Church campuses. He's in charge of all things audio for Red Rocks Church, whether that is mixing front of house, finding personnel to mix for each campus, or broadcast mixing. It all goes through him. Jake and I had the privilege to hang out with Jesse in the Red Rocks broadcast suite and recording studio at the Littleton campus and learn about the new gear that they have implemented into their setup.
Okay, so this is the broadcast suite / audio studio for Red Rocks. So this is where everything you hear online is going through this room. It's kind of a multifunction room. We use it for the broadcast side of things and then any album work that we've been kind of ramping up lately.
Red Rocks originally used a Yamaha CL5 in their broadcast suite for all of their recording and broadcast needs, but they have recently switched to using a combination of Pro Tools and MIDI controllers to substitute the CL5. Let's see why they have made this move and how it has been beneficial for them.
So the biggest thing that changed that made us go this route is, I mean, from the, I grew up, the early part of my career, I was a studio engineer, so that's all I know. Pro Tools was my home base. So I was always very more comfortable in Pro Tools than anything else, including digital consoles. So the big reason why we went the digital console route is because it's live. And when it's live, you need something that's extremely reliable. And Pro Tools is kind of notorious for not being very reliable. Most DAWs are similar in that. It's a computer program, it crashes. Just like ProPresenter, just like Photoshop, they all do it. Where digital consoles are quite a bit more reliable. Although they can, you don't see that too often where they're completely shutting down and crashing. And if they do, they have a really quick reboot time. So that was the lead reason why we kind of steered away from doing it all in the box, and I think why most people did. Where nowadays, the combination of how you set it up and just the programs and the hardware nowadays, I think it's a little bit safer to say that you can reliably be successful in this without major issues and major crashes. So that was kind of the big switch. We felt comfortable in the fact that, like, all right, I think we're good to do it all in the box. A lot of people have already done it in the box successfully for a long time, so we jumped on that ship. And that's one of the big reasons why, we thought it was really necessary to get into the box, get into Pro Tools for that bus processing. Digital consoles, I think, digital consoles, some are better than others. With the CL5, it's really hard to do bus compression. You can do it, but it's kind of weird. You have to use auxes, which are buses, but it's just really, it's hard to keep track, and it's hard to get proper gain staging along the way. It's just kind of a weird workaround that you have to do. So in Pro Tools, yeah, especially with drums, I'm doing drum bus compression, additive compression with it. Same with bass. So there's just things that a DAW, not just Pro Tools, Logic, just DAW bus system is way better set up for stuff like that.
Jesse is a fan of the Avid S1 MIDI controllers because of their reliability and user-friendliness to be able to show a visual representation of what he is doing in Pro Tools. Let's see why Jesse chose the Avid S1s compared to the other models and options for controllers.
This is a control surface. It is purely that. It's just a controller. It's doing nothing for processing. You're not getting any DSP out of it. It is purely there for your tactile functionality. It's just mirroring Pro Tools. So everything I can do here, I can do with a mouse. So the cool thing about this is S1. I think they came out within the last year. So relatively new controller. They're, compared to other Avid controllers, they're very reasonably priced. Avid is known for their very expensive controllers. I personally, I'm not gonna pay high dollar for a controller. It's doing, I'm not doing anything other than, supplying faders for my fingers. So there's no need for me to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on just that, a controller. I like to say it's a glorified mouse. That's all it's doing. So here we went with the S1s because of that. It's a little bit cheaper, so now we can take that money and spend it on better microphones, better preamps. We got the Neves downstairs, stuff that actually makes a difference with sound quality, better plugins, that sort of thing. My point was like, okay, well, I could spend this whole setup cost about $6,000. So all 4 of these with the control, with all the iPads, was about $6,000. So for just a little bit more than an S3, which gave me 16 channels and no screens, I have 24 faders plus the control jack, a lot of visual feedback, and then I can spend any extra money or on stuff that actually makes a difference. So that was my thinking in the S1s.
Jesse has Pro Tools set up acting as if it's a digital console. While Pro Tools does have the capability to record, Jesse is using Pro Tools just for the processing, mixing it down to a stereo mix, and then sending audio through to a multi-track recorder. This setup can be a lot more budget-friendly than the route of getting a digital console, not to mention the countless amazing plugins that can be utilized by going this route.
So in Dante, you have all your inputs into Pro Tools coming from Stage, then the outputs of Pro Tools. I'm taking my master out, left and right out, and routing through Dante down to the video room, down to where, I don't even know what they're using now, Wirecast or something to get it online, to the video recorders, back into the last 2 tracks of my multi-track systems so that I'm recording my mix as well.
Instead of recording directly into Pro Tools, Jesse has it set up to have Pro Tools send the master stereo mix out to the multi-track recorder. The software that he is using is called Tracks Live by Waves. Tracks Live is somewhat limiting in ability and has recently been discontinued and is no longer supported. It will soon be replaced by Reaper, which is another DAW and multi-track recorder that has much more capability. Jesse is planning to switch over to Reaper in the next couple of weeks for all of his multi-track recordings. Jesse and the Red Rocks team utilize the Dante network for all of their routing needs. This makes getting audio from one location to another super simple and reliable. This also makes the audio routing possibilities nearly endless.
So at Red Rocks, we're using Dante to do all the routing. So essentially, starting from the Stage, we are going from Yamaha Rios and the AMS Neve preamps that are Dante enabled. So it starts there, or starts from the mic, goes into one of those interfaces, and then from there it's converted right to Dante. It shows up on the Dante network, and then we can route wherever we need it to go. So it's going to the front of house console, it's going to the monitor console, and then it's coming up to me, both to my Pro Tools setup, and then over here, I have 2 multi-track recording systems. So if Pro Tools fails completely, I still have it rolling to 2 different systems. If one of the multi-track systems fails, it's still going to the other. So it's all done through Dante. So just all these devices show up on the network, and then you can just click route in.
Since Jesse is using Pro Tools, he has great options for using plugins for processing in his mix. While there are amazing third-party plugins available, Jesse leans towards using stock plugins when possible.
So in broadcast, because it is live and I want reliability, for simple stuff I try to use the stock plugins. They have relatively low demand on the CPU, which is what you want in this situation. If your CPU is at 50%, well, it's going to spike to 100. You have a much higher probability that that's going to happen and it will cause a crash. So you want to keep your CPU low, as low as you can. So it's a combination of stuff. Once you use plugins a lot, you kind of get to know them and how much of a load they put on your CPU. But for most EQs, it's all stock. Compression, I really don't like the Pro Tools stock compressor, so I've steered away from that. But I've used, it's actually made by, it's Impact I use a lot. Made by Pro Tools. It's not stock, but it's really low processing. I'm not pulling up these big fancy verbs like the waves, chambers, or plates that one instance uses 25% of your CPU. It's just not worth the sonic quality because then I don't have room for any other plugin. So it's really important. You really have to kind of think. It's not like a record where you're just like, oh, I'll just use whatever plugin I want. If it's too heavy, I'll just bounce it. You kind of really have to think through your plugins and what you're using. It all depends on how many tracks, what you're doing. There's no right or wrong answer. Just keep an eye on your CPU. I like to stick around 25 to 30% CPU max. Visual feedback is cool. Do I need all this to do functional mix? Well, no, you're using your ears. But it is nice to have some visual feedback. So, on the console, it is nice to have, meters so you kind of see where you are. The main screen here, I just have the mixer view for the most part when I'm broadcasting. When I'm doing studio work, I'll actually move to the edit window because that's primarily what you're going to be in. All these are on one computer, so this is just Pro Tools. I have dual screen here, and then these are just for the control services. This meter right here is TC Electronics Clarity. Really cool. Pretty cheap, I think it's like $300 meter. It's just a super accurate multifunction meter. So you have a phase meter, you have kind of a loudness radar, shows you kind of your loudness over time, and then just a kind of a RTA, shows you a different frequency. I like the phase meter because I like to see my phase of my mix. So a lot of cool stuff there. And then I also use this for my overall loudness, which is really important for broadcast. Basically I'm looking at my LUFS level.
Jesse is using Genelec 1032s for studio monitors, and they work awesome to help him achieve a great sounding mix.
I think they're kind of an old school speaker, at least the 1030 series. But that comes from my studio background. I just love them. I know them really well. And then the meters up top, yeah, those are just little soldering, cheap, little like $5 soldering kits from China that I bought. They are not accurate in the slightest. Their ballistics are just wrong. But hey, they look cool, and you can put them on top speakers, and it's ooh. There's no critical feedback that those are giving me whatsoever.
To be able to run Pro Tools efficiently and handle all of the processing, a reliable and powerful computer is required to ensure that it all runs smoothly. Red Rocks uses a Mac Pro that is 6-core and has 64 gigs of RAM. It's the same Mac Pro that they've been using since 2016 when the broadcast suite and recording studio was put together. Jesse and the Red Rocks team have come up with a great solution to be able to reach their congregation during the COVID season. And the product that they are producing is amazing. While they aren't doing a true live stream, they are able to produce and record a service during the week and then simulate a live stream on Sunday morning.
So right now in the COVID season, for the most part, we do services usually on Fridays, and then we schedule the live broadcasting online on Saturday and Sunday. As far as like mix goes, do I do a lot of our post on the mix? Very light post, and only if needed. So I'm taking my mix, it's recording, my 2 tracks being recorded. That is pretty much the mix you hear, even though we do it on Friday, that's the mix you'll hear on the weekend. The only time I'll go in and actually do post on it is if there's just a auto-tune throws a note in a weird spot and I have to go in and address that. I will I'll import the audio into this session, I'll rebounce a mix, fix that one spot, and literally just punch in that one line or two in my mix and reprint my stereo mix just for that moment. And then, crossfade and, merge it with my existing mix, and that becomes the new mix. So I'm not like remixing the show, I'm not starting over from scratch. I'm literally just fixing specific spots in the mix if need be. If not, that's what you hear. What I do while they're doing it live is what you hear. Now I will go in and kind of master it. I'll put a little little limiting and EQ on the overall mix, but that's about it.
Jesse and the team at Red Rocks have been able to achieve phenomenal audio quality for their live stream with this setup. Check out the Red Rocks Church YouTube channel to hear the final result for yourself. For additional tips on taking your worship tech ministry to the next level, check out our free workshop, The Ultimate Guide to Worship Tech, linked below this video. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button and share this video with your friends in worship ministry. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our latest videos to help you grow yourself and your worship ministry.